The 1960s were a golden era for muscle cars, sleek designs, and innovative engineering, or at least that's the popular narrative. Beneath the chrome and fins, however, some car makers dropped the ball with flawed body designs that made certain models infamous. From structural weaknesses to aesthetic disasters, here are 12 of the worst engineered car bodies from the decade.
Dear viewer, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Thanks for your support.
Number 12, 1960 Plymouth Valiant. 1960 Plymouth Valiant, a car that, at first glance, seems like an ambitious effort to capture the forward look of the 1960s, but ultimately falls short of its potential. Plymouth's desire to create a modern, stylish, compact vehicle resulted in a design that was, unfortunately, an awkward mishmash of contradictory elements. Despite its role in reshaping the compact car market, the Valiant's design flaws make it a key example of how poor styling choices can hinder a car's overall success. The forward look was a design philosophy championed by Chrysler during the late 1950s and early 1960s, aiming to make their cars appear sleek, modern, and futuristic. While the Plymouth Valiant was part of this forward-thinking movement, its design fell short in execution, with several elements that seemed more like a confusing mix of old and new rather than a harmonious vision of the future. The Plymouth Valiant featured a bizarre mixture of curves and sharp lines. On one hand, there were smooth, flowing curves meant to suggest speed and modernity, while on the other, sharp lines were introduced in an attempt to evoke a more aggressive, angular aesthetic. The blend of these two design approaches created a lack of cohesion in the car's silhouette. It made the Valiant look disjointed, as if it was trying to embody both elegance and sportiness, but could not commit to either. The Valiant's design incorporated small tail fins that, while meant to evoke the sleek, futuristic designs of the late 1950s, seemed out of place by 1960. At a time when tail fins were being phased out in favor of more restrained forms, these tiny fins looked like an anachronistic afterthought. Rather than adding elegance or flair, the small fins felt like a holdover from an earlier era, distracting from the more modern design elements that could have better defined the Valiant's character. The Plymouth Valiant's design featured excessive overhangs, both in the front and the rear, which gave the car an unbalanced appearance. The long, protruding sections of the body distorted the car's proportions, making it appear top-heavy. These overhangs weren't just a visual issue, they also affected the car's practicality. The extended front overhang compromised visibility, while the rear overhang added unnecessary weight and could make the car harder to maneuver in tight spaces. This excessive length also contributed to the car's unwieldy turning radius and less than ideal handling characteristics. While overhangs may work well in certain design contexts, such as with long, luxury sedans, the Valiant, as a compact car, simply wasn't designed to carry that kind of visual weight. The result was a car that, from a design perspective, looked impractical and out of place in the compact segment. The bulkiness of the Valiant's design, with its extended overhangs and confusing mix of lines and shapes, made it appear clunky and visually ugly. Instead of feeling sleek and modern, the car came across as awkward and unfinished. Despite being a reliable, practical car, the Plymouth Valiant's design issues hurt its marketability. The combination of outdated tail fins, impractical overhangs, and an incoherent mix of curves and lines created a lack of visual clarity in the vehicle's identity. In an era where consumers were increasingly drawn to clean, elegant designs, the Valiant failed to deliver. Buyers were not looking for a vehicle that seemed to be struggling with its identity. The Valiant's awkward proportions and outdated styling cues made it less desirable compared to rivals like the Chevrolet Corvair, which boasted a more refined, cohesive design. The 1960 Plymouth Valiant serves as a reminder that when introducing new design elements, it is critical to balance innovation with practicality. The forward look idea was an exciting one, but the Valiant's execution ultimately failed due to an overzealous attempt to combine multiple, sometimes conflicting, styles. The lesson here is that a car's design should feel intentional and well integrated. When styling elements like tail fins, overhangs, and body lines are not harmonized, it can undermine the vehicle's appeal, leading to a disjointed and unappealing look. As we look back at the 1960 Plymouth Valiant, it's clear that while Plymouth had big ideas, their design execution left much to be desired. While the car was undoubtedly an important model in the development of compact cars, its design flaws are a reminder of how form and function must work in harmony to create a truly successful vehicle. Ultimately, the Valiant's design missteps hindered its ability to resonate with consumers, showing how even the most innovative ideas can fall short when practical and aesthetic considerations are overlooked. Number 11, 1961 Chevrolet Impala Bubble Top. 1961 Chevrolet Impala Bubble Top. While it stands as a symbol of classic automotive styling and is widely admired by collectors and enthusiasts, the bubble-top version of the Impala was not without its serious design flaws. The 1961 Chevrolet Impala is often heralded as one of the most visually stunning and influential cars of its time. The bubble top was a special trim characterized by its fastback roofline, which created a unique bubble shape. This model became a symbol of American automotive design, widely admired for its sleek, low-slung profile and futuristic styling. Chevrolet was keen to appeal to a younger demographic with the Impala's updated futuristic design. The bubble-top variant, with its distinctive roofline, was aimed at creating a sense of style and luxury, which helped the Impala secure its place in the market. At first glance, the bubble-top roof is an undeniably striking feature. The car's gently curving roofline, coupled with the smooth side panels, lent the Impala an almost jet-like appearance. The roof design contributed to a low, racy profile, which made the car stand out among the competition, enhancing its visual appeal. To this day, the 1961 Impala Bubble Top remains a prized collector's car, its unique shape continuing to captivate automotive enthusiasts. The bubble-top roof design, while visually appealing, led to a significant structural compromise. Unlike traditional hardtop cars, the Impala's roofline lacked the necessary structural support to maintain rigidity without additional reinforcement. The curved, expansive glass required special attention to prevent flexing, and the car's body was more prone to flexing under stress. The result of this weak structure was a roof that lacked proper structural strength to withstand impacts and rollovers. While the car's design was cutting edge, it made compromises that compromised the overall safety of the vehicle. The intricate design of the bubble top led to numerous maintenance headaches. The lack of proper sealing around the roof and windows resulted in persistent leaks, especially around the rear window area. The rubber seals used at the time weren't up to the task of keeping out water, leading to rust and mildew in the interior. Owners of the 1961 Impala Bubble Top often faced constant repairs to deal with leaks. The complexity of the design made it difficult to replace or repair seals effectively, leading to a cycle of repeated maintenance and frustration. The bubble-like roofline was not only prone to leaks, but also difficult to repair. The design required specialized parts, and finding replacement components for the roof and glass was challenging and often expensive. As a result, owners faced higher repair costs than those with more conventional rooflines, and many owners simply couldn't afford the extensive upkeep required to maintain the car in pristine condition. One of the most significant drawbacks of the 1961 Impala Bubble Top was its safety and rollovers. The lack of structural integrity meant that the roof was more prone to collapsing in the event of a rollover accident. The roof flexed under stress, leading to a reduced safety factor for the occupants. Unlike later cars, which would feature reinforced roofs designed to withstand rollovers, the Bubble Top's roof had no real rollover protection. In an era when safety was less of a priority than it is today, the Impala's bubble roof was a glaring weakness. While the Impala's exterior design was admired for its elegance and speed, it lacked the necessary safety features to protect passengers in the event of an accident. The lack of reinforced pillars and the unconventional roof design meant that the roof could collapse, causing serious injuries to passengers. In the case of a rollover, the roof's failure to withstand pressure could have tragic consequences. Despite the practical and safety flaws, the 1961 Chevrolet Impala Bubble Top is still widely considered one of the most beautifully designed cars of the era. Its impact on automotive design is undeniable, and it remains an icon in American automotive culture. The Impala's distinctive look has made it a collector's dream, and the bubble-top version, despite its flaws, commands high prices at auctions due to its rarity and classic appeal. In conclusion, the 1961 Chevrolet Impala bubble top is a classic example of automotive style and design pushing boundaries, but also making significant compromises. While its visual appeal remains undiminished, its structural weaknesses, maintenance challenges, and safety concerns are important lessons in design that remind us of the delicate balance between form and function in car manufacturing. As enthusiasts continue to revere the Impala for its beauty. Number 10. 1963 Studebaker Avanti. The 1963 Studebaker Avanti was one of the most ambitious and innovative American cars of the early 1960s. It showcased bold, futuristic styling and was intended to be a performance car ahead of its time. Designed by Raymond Loewy, one of the most influential industrial designers of the 20th century, the Avanti was intended to compete with the likes of the Chevrolet Corvette and other high-performance sports cars of the era. However, despite its innovative design and ambitious goals, the Avanti had significant structural and functional flaws. These flaws included fiberglass body panels prone to warping and cracking and practical limitations in rear visibility, issues that would go on to limit the car's long-term appeal and hinder its commercial success. The Avanti's design was groundbreaking, featuring a sleek aerodynamic shape, a fastback roofline, and a front-mounted supercharged V8 engine. The Avanti looked unlike anything else on the road in the early 1960s. Its stunningly modern design made it a visual icon, immediately associating it with the idea of luxury performance and futurism. The car's design was the product of famed industrial designer Raymond Loewy, who had already made a name for himself with companies like Studebaker and Coca-Cola. Loewy's approach was to create a car that was not only fast and powerful, but also stylish and ahead of its time. The Avanti embodied his philosophy of functional beauty, and for a while it seemed poised to revolutionize the industry. One of the most innovative aspects of the Avanti was its use of fiberglass for the body panels. Fiberglass allowed for a lighter, more fuel-efficient vehicle while still offering durability. The idea was to create a car that was not only stylish but also practical in terms of weight and efficiency. Fiberglass also allowed for smoother and more aerodynamic curves, which contributed to the car's sleek flowing profile, enhancing its visual appeal. While fiberglass offered many design advantages, it came with significant downsides. The most notable flaw was its susceptibility to warping and cracking over time. Exposure to the elements, particularly the sun, could cause the fiberglass to become brittle and prone to warping, affecting the car's appearance and structural integrity. Cracking could occur in areas such as the front and rear fenders, which was a significant issue for a car that was marketed as a luxury vehicle. Unlike traditional steel-bodied cars, which could absorb impacts and resist minor dings, the Avanti's fiberglass panels were prone to damage from even minor collisions, leading to higher repair costs and an increased likelihood of damage over time. The lack of flexibility in the panels compared to steel meant that once a crack appeared, the damage could be permanent and difficult to repair. The fiberglass panels were also more challenging to repair than steel. While steel panels could be pounded out, welded, and fixed relatively easily, fiberglass required specialized repairs involving the layering of resin, which was not always an easy or cost-effective process. This posed a problem for owners who found themselves needing repairs due to cracking, which often happened more frequently than they anticipated. The fiberglass panels were also prone to fading, and over time the finish would deteriorate, leading to the need for frequent repainting and making the Avanti more costly to maintain in terms of upkeep. The Avanti's fastback roofline was one of the key elements of its distinctive design, contributing to its sleek, futuristic appearance. However, this design choice resulted in limited rear visibility, a major practical flaw for drivers. The rear window's extremely narrow and slanted design made it difficult for drivers to see what was behind them, a crucial factor in both city driving and highway safety. The lack of a rear window that provided a clear line of sight created serious blind spots. For a car intended to be driven aggressively and for high-speed performance, This design feature significantly impaired driver confidence and safety, especially in situations like lane changes or parking. In conclusion, the 1963 Studebaker Avanti serves as both a remarkable achievement in automotive innovation and a cautionary tale of design over practicality. While its bold use of fiberglass and futuristic design set it apart, the car's structural flaws and practical limitations, from the fragile body panels to the poor rear visibility, ultimately hampered its success. However, its status as a cult classic and design milestone remains undeniable, highlighting the delicate balance between aesthetic ambition and functional reliability in automotive design. Number 9, 1966 Rambler Marlin. The 1966 Rambler Marlin was an ambitious and somewhat unconventional attempt by American Motors Corporation, AMC, to break into the growing market for sporty, personal luxury cars. With its fastback roofline, the Marlin aimed to combine the sleekness of a grand touring coupe with the practicality of a midsize sedan. However, despite its bold design aspirations, the Marlin was marred by serious proportional flaws and practical shortcomings. These design flaws would go on to limit the car's appeal and ultimately hinder its success in the market. By the mid-1960s, the American automotive market was dominated by performance-oriented vehicles, with muscle cars and pony cars like the Ford Mustang capturing the public's imagination. However, AMC, a company known for more modest and practical vehicles, wanted to carve out a new niche in the automotive world. The Rambler Marlin was AMC's response, a sporty, personal luxury coupe that could appeal to buyers looking for something unique. It was designed to offer stylish appeal, with the intention of competing against popular models like the Ford Thunderbird and Chevrolet Corvette. The Marlin featured a fastback roofline, a long, flowing design meant to convey speed and elegance. It was a car that intended to balance style with practicality, offering a spacious interior combined with an aggressive, sleek exterior. However, this bold design quickly ran into several challenges that would make the Marlin's visual appeal more contentious than AMC intended. The Marlin's biggest flaw was its mismatch of a fastback roofline with a standard sedan body. While the fastback roofline is often associated with more aggressive and sporty vehicles, the Marlin retained much of the bulk and proportions of a traditional sedan. This created an awkward visual disconnect between the car's sloping roof and boxy lower body. The fastback roofline, typically a feature seen on more compact and refined coupes, seemed out of place when attached to a larger sedan chassis. The result was a car that looked disjointed and top-heavy, with the roofline attempting to impart a sense of aerodynamics, but clashing with the bulkier sedan-style body below. The front end of the Marlin, with its wide grille and long hood, also contributed to its unbalanced look. While the roofline tried to evoke sportiness, the car's longer, heavier front kept it grounded in sedan territory, making it look like a car that couldn't quite decide if it was sporty or practical. The fastback roofline, intended to impart a sense of speed and agility, had the opposite effect on the Marlin due to the misalignment of the roof with the body. Instead of creating a clean, flowing silhouette, the roofline appeared to have been tacked onto a car that wasn't built for such a feature. This made the Marlin's overall shape look unrefined and awkward, which detracted from the otherwise sleek lines of the roof. The rear section of the Marlin, designed to emphasize its fastback styling, looked disproportionately heavy compared to the front end. The excessive trunk overhang, combined with the fastback roof, made the car seem overly long and cumbersome. This disproportionality led to a design that didn't fully convey the athleticism or elegance that was intended. The Marlin's fastback roofline not only hurt the car's exterior proportions, but also led to practical issues inside the cabin. The sloped roofline, though stylish, reduced headroom in the rear seats, making it less comfortable for taller passengers. The rear seat felt cramped, and those who sat in the back often found it difficult to enjoy the full benefits of the spacious sedan platform that AMC had originally intended. The rear seats, while spacious in terms of legroom, were uncomfortable due to the reduced headroom caused by the design. Passengers in the back often found themselves bending down to avoid hitting their heads on the roof, limiting the Marlin's practicality as a four-passenger vehicle. When compared to the competition, such as the Ford Thunderbird or the Chevrolet Corvette, The Marlin's cramped rear seats and limited headroom made it less comfortable and less desirable. While other manufacturers had been able to create sporty coupes with both style and comfort, the Marlin felt like it was trying to balance too many things at once, ultimately falling short on both. The 1966 Rambler Marlin stands as an example of how ambitious design can go awry when there is a mismatch between stylistic innovation and functional practicality. The car's fastback roofline, which was intended to impart speed and elegance, instead created awkward proportions and limited headroom, which compromised both its visual appeal and interior comfort. Number 8. 1960 Ford Anglia. The 1960 Ford Anglia was an iconic car in its native United Kingdom, but when it was brought to the US market, it faced a far more challenging reception. While it found a modest following in its home country as a practical, affordable compact, the Anglia's quirky design and questionable proportions created issues that made it less appealing to American consumers. Specifically, its backward slanted rear window and awkward overall proportions led to functional and aesthetic shortcomings that affected both its usability and its visual appeal. The Ford Anglia was part of a long-running series of compact cars produced by Ford of Britain. By the time the 1960 model came around, it was seen as a simple, budget-friendly vehicle with modest appeal for the average consumer. Ford's decision to introduce the Anglia to the US market was an effort to tap into the growing demand for compact, fuel-efficient cars in the wake of post-war prosperity. However, American buyers were accustomed to larger, more conventional designs, and the Anglia's quirky features made it an odd choice for the US market. The 1960 Ford Anglia came to symbolize British eccentricity with features that were considered innovative in Europe, but unconventional and awkward in the US. The most immediately obvious design flaw in the 1960 Ford Anglia was its backward slanted rear window. Unlike traditional cars where the rear window is angled to provide a more natural flow from the roofline to the trunk, the Anglia's rear window was tilted backwards at a sharp angle. This reverse slope gave the Anglia an odd, out-of-proportion look. Rather than a sleek, cohesive rear profile, the design created a visual disjoint between the roofline and the rear end of the vehicle. The result was a car that looked almost unfinished or misaligned, as if the rear window was added as an afterthought. The roofline and rear end seemed like two distinct pieces that didn't fully belong together. The steeply slanted window reduced the driver's visibility out the back. When combined with the compact dimensions of the car, this created potential safety issues, as rear visibility is crucial when parking or reversing. More than just a visual oddity, the backwards slanted window compromised the rear cargo capacity. This window design reduced the available space for rear luggage or storage. When compared to the more traditional designs of other compact cars in the US market, the Anglia's rear trunk space felt cramped and impractical for everyday use, especially for American families accustomed to having more cargo room. The 1960 Ford Anglia had an unusual proportional mix that made it look strangely compact. While it was a small car, its short, stocky body combined with the backwards, slanted rear window resulted in awkward dimensions. The design was essentially top-heavy, with a tall roof that seemed at odds with the shorter, boxier rear. This lack of balance in its proportions made the Anglia appear stumpy when viewed from the side, and the overly tall, steep roofline contributed to a visual imbalance that was not aesthetically pleasing by American standards. American consumers were used to more traditional compact cars that adhered to familiar design principles. Models like the Chevrolet Corvair and the Ford Falcon offered cleaner, more cohesive proportions, with better overall proportional balance between their front and rear ends. The Anglia's proportions, by comparison, felt odd and outdated, making it a hard sell to a public that was used to more rounded, cohesive designs. The slanted rear window just compounded the overall sense that the car was not visually in line with mainstream American tastes. Beyond its aesthetic flaws, the backwards slanted rear window significantly impacted the car's practicality. The design meant that the trunk space was severely limited due to the steep rear angle. In addition, the rear seats were less accessible, as the design didn't allow for smooth access or even a sense of comfort for taller passengers. The limited cargo space in the Anglia also made it less functional for families or people who needed more storage capacity. The trunk was small and oddly shaped, a byproduct of the design, and it couldn't compete with the more functional and spacious trunks offered by its competitors. While the design of the Ford Anglia may have been aimed at emphasizing style and uniqueness, the trade-off in practicality was too great to make it appealing in the American market. The rear window in particular was a design feature that looked striking, but ultimately rendered the car less useful, both in terms of cargo space and visibility. The 1960 Ford Anglia teaches us an important lesson in automotive design. Functionality should not be sacrificed for the sake of uniqueness, especially when it results in an aesthetically displeasing or impractical product. Number 7. Chevrolet Corvair. The Chevrolet Corvair, first introduced in 1960, was a revolutionary car for General Motors. As a compact rear-engine vehicle, it stood out in an era dominated by front-engine, rear-wheel drive sedans and coupes. While the 1965 Chevrolet Corvair Coupe marked the second generation of the model, it was still burdened by significant design flaws, particularly when it came to structural safety. Despite improvements in its mechanical performance, the Corvair Coupe's body design remained vulnerable due to thin roof pillars and other structural weaknesses. The Chevrolet Corvair was initially lauded for its innovative design, which included a rear-mounted engine, unibody construction, and a low-profile design. These features were unusual for American cars of the time, and GM marketed the Corvair as a distinctive, modern vehicle for the post-war era. However, the car's unconventional design also led to engineering challenges, many of which would become apparent in the first generation of the Corvair. By 1965, the second-generation Corvair aimed to address some of these mechanical concerns, improving suspension systems, handling, and engine performance. Despite these improvements, however, the structural weaknesses of the body design would continue to be a significant issue. The most critical flaw in the 1965 Chevrolet Corvair Coupe was its thin roof pillars. These A-pillar, B-pillar, and C-pillar supports were significantly thinner than those found on most cars of the time, creating serious structural vulnerabilities. These weak points reduced the overall rigidity of the car's body, particularly during a rollover crash or side impact collision. The thinness of the roof pillars made it difficult for the vehicle to maintain structural integrity in the event of a collision. While these pillars were designed to be lightweight to improve fuel efficiency and lower the overall weight of the car, they ultimately compromised the safety of the passengers inside. In the event of a rollover or a side impact collision, the lack of strength in these pillars made the roof more likely to cave in, causing serious injury or fatalities. This was particularly concerning because rollover accidents were not uncommon, especially for vehicles with a rear-mounted engine and a rear heavy weight distribution, like the Corvair. The roof's reduced ability to protect the occupants in such an event made the car dangerous despite its otherwise compact size. In addition to the weak roof pillars, the lack of reinforcement in the side structures of the 1965 Corvair made it vulnerable to side impact collisions. The thin metal frame of the car did not provide sufficient protection in these types of crashes, leading to deformation of the side panels and increased risk to the passengers. When compared to other compact cars of the time, like the Ford Mustang or Chevrolet's own Chevy 2, the Corvair's lack of structural integrity in a crash was concerning. These competitors had stronger side beams, reinforced pillars, and other structural enhancements that offered more protection in the event of a crash. The Corvair, by contrast, failed to meet the safety standards that would be expected of a modern vehicle. Ralph Nader, a prominent consumer advocate, played a major role in highlighting the safety issues with the Chevrolet Corvair in his book, Unsafe at Any Speed, published in 1965. Nader's book criticized the Corvair for its poor safety features, particularly its structural weaknesses and its tendency to roll over during certain driving conditions. While Nader's critiques were often controversial, they sparked a national debate about automobile safety and led to the eventual reform of car safety standards in the U.S. The 1965 Corvair, specifically, was highlighted as an example of a car that lacked the necessary structural integrity to keep its occupants safe in the event of a crash. In addition to the structural weaknesses, The rear engine layout of the Corvair contributed to handling instability, particularly in sharp turns and high-speed maneuvers. The rear weight distribution caused the car to be tail-happy, making it prone to oversteering and loss of control in certain conditions. While the second-generation Corvair improved handling through modifications to the suspension system, the structural flaws remained a critical safety concern. The car's instability, combined with the weak roof pillars and poor crash safety features, made it a risky proposition for consumers, especially those who were unfamiliar with rear-engine vehicles. The 1965 Chevrolet Corvair Coupe serves as a cautionary tale in automotive design. While its rear-engine layout and compact size made it an attractive option for certain buyers, its structural flaws, especially the thin roof pillars, made it unsafe in crash situations, particularly in rollovers or side impact collisions. Number 6, 1967 Imperial Crown Coupe. The 1967 Imperial Crown Coupe, manufactured by Chrysler's Imperial division, was an ambitious entry in the luxury car market. Known for its premium features, smooth ride, and elegant positioning as a high-end model, the Imperial Crown Coupe was meant to represent the pinnacle of American luxury. However, its exaggerated fender lines, bulky grille, and awkward proportions created a design that often felt too heavy and unbalanced, diminishing its intended luxury appeal. Chrysler's Imperial brand, introduced in 1955, aimed to compete with established luxury marks like Cadillac and Lincoln. The 1967 Imperial Crown Coupe was part of a long tradition of grand, high-performance vehicles designed to offer superior comfort and status. The Imperial Crown was intended to combine high-end luxury features, such as rich upholstery, advanced technology, and a smooth driving experience, with a design that stood apart from mainstream vehicles. The 1967 Imperial Crown Coupe boasted luxurious appointments and a powerful engine, aiming to convey a sense of prestige and exclusivity. It was a grand vehicle intended to dominate the road with its large proportions and bold presence. However, while the Imperial was designed to stand out, its styling choices would ultimately clash with the refined sensibility that many luxury buyers expected. One of the most striking features of the 1967 Imperial Crown Coupe was its exaggerated fender lines. The wide, flared fenders and sharply defined wheel arches made the car look overly bulky and top-heavy, rather than the elegant, streamlined appearance associated with true luxury cars. The fender lines were overly emphasized and out of proportion with the rest of the vehicle's body, making the car appear clumsy rather than refined. This design element made the car look like it had been over-designed, with more focus placed on styling excess than subtle elegance. In a luxury car, the emphasis is usually on smooth, flowing lines that create an impression of grace and refinement. The Imperial's fenders, by contrast, disrupted the natural flow of the car's silhouette, giving it an unnecessary heaviness. The grille of the 1967 Imperial Crown Coupe was another major stylistic flaw. The large, bulky grille took up an excessive amount of the car's front end, making the vehicle look unbalanced. While luxury cars often feature large grilles, they are usually designed to fit harmoniously with the rest of the vehicle's proportions. In the case of the Imperial, the grille did not serve as a complementary focal point, but rather as an overbearing visual element. The sheer size and angularity of the grille created a front-heavy appearance, further exacerbating the car's already disproportionate design. When designing luxury vehicles, proportion plays a significant role in conveying prestige and refinement. The 1967 Imperial Crown Coupe, however, suffered from awkward proportions. The elongated hood and bulkier rear end made the car feel out of sync. Instead of offering the sleek, cohesive appearance that luxury buyers typically expect, the Imperial had a disjointed design that felt like it was trying too hard to make a statement. The wide stance of the car was another issue. The flared fenders gave the car an overly stout appearance, making it appear more like a muscle car than a sophisticated luxury vehicle. While the car was indeed large, it did not convey power in a way that was graceful. Instead, the vehicle came across as more clunky than classy, with design elements that were at odds with the luxury segment it sought to appeal to. Luxury cars are generally expected to have a fluid design, one that communicates effortlessness and poise. The 1967 Imperial Crown Coupe, on the other hand, featured a design that appeared forced. The combination of heavy fender lines, bulky grille, and awkward proportions made the car's design feel stiff and clumsy, which detracted from the refined image Chrysler sought to cultivate. In contrast, its competitors, such as the Cadillac Eldorado or the Lincoln Continental, maintained better proportions and a more harmonious design. These competitors, with their subtle curves and elegant lines, better captured the essence of luxury design, a sense of grace and effortlessness. In conclusion, the 1967 Imperial Crown Coupe offers a valuable lesson in automotive design. While Chrysler's efforts to create a bold luxury vehicle were commendable, the exaggerated fender lines, bulky grille, and awkward proportions detracted from the car's intended image of elegance and prestige. The design flaws not only undermined the Imperial's status as a luxury car, but also contributed to its lackluster market reception. Luxury cars, as the Imperial Crown Coupe demonstrates, are defined by subtlety, elegance, and balance, qualities that the 1967 model, for all its ambition, failed to deliver. Number 5. 1968 AMC Javelin. The 1968 AMC Javelin, released by the American Motors Corporation, AMC, was introduced as a direct competitor to the likes of the Ford Mustang and Chevrolet Camaro in the growing muscle car market. It was marketed as a bold and stylish sports coupe with the promise of performance and flair. While the Javelin had some notable successes, including a strong V8 engine option and an aggressive design, the car's elongated body and narrow rear created significant stability issues and left the car looking disproportionate in comparison to its competitors. AMC, a smaller automaker, aimed to carve out a space in the muscle car segment by creating the Javelin. Introduced as a fastback sports coupe, the Javelin was meant to compete with more established models like the Ford Mustang and Chevrolet Camaro, both of which had already become iconic. With the Javelin, AMC offered performance options like the 390 cubic inch V8 and designed the car with a unique look to set it apart. The fastback roofline and sharp lines were bold, but the overall proportions and execution would eventually be viewed as a design misstep. AMC's marketing emphasized the performance capabilities of the Javelin. Buyers were promised a car that combined muscle car power with styling that could compete with the big names. Yet despite its powerful engines, the Javelin's design issues became the focal point for critics and buyers alike. One of the most noticeable design flaws of the 1968 AMC Javelin was its elongated body paired with a narrow rear. The front of the car featured a longer hood that led into a body that seemed to stretch too far. This elongation was visually unbalanced when combined with the tight rear end, which made the car appear overly stretched out and disproportionate. In the world of muscle cars, proportion is key. Muscle cars, by nature, tend to feature a short, aggressive stance that communicates power and speed. The Javelin's design, however, conveyed a sense of awkwardness due to the imbalance between its front and rear sections. While competitors like the Mustang and Camaro balanced their designs with a more compact and muscular profile, the Javelin appeared stretched and less agile. The narrow rear made the car look unfinished and less stable in its overall silhouette. The narrow rear of the Javelin exacerbated its design flaws, creating an awkward profile that was not only unattractive, but also detrimental to its drivability. The combination of a wide front end and thin rear created stability issues, especially at higher speeds or during cornering. The rear end's lack of mass and width left the car feeling less planted on the road, especially compared to rivals that had wider, more stable rear ends. The design made the car look more like a stretched-out coupe than a true muscle car, which requires a solid rear end to balance the performance demands of its powerful engines. The elongated front end of the Javelin, when combined with the narrow rear, created significant stability issues when driving at higher speeds. While the Javelin had a powerful engine lineup, including the 390 V8, the car's rear-heavy balance caused it to feel less composed on the road compared to its competitors, which had a better sense of aerodynamic stability. Muscle cars are designed to accelerate and handle high-speed maneuvers, and the Javelin's proportions made it prone to understeering or losing grip in corners, especially when pushing the car to its limits. The rear section, while stylish in theory, was too light and narrow for a muscle car that was intended for aggressive driving. This made the Javelin feel more like a cruiser than a performance machine, which was a major disadvantage in a market dominated by cars like the Mustang and Camaro. The unstable handling due to the Javelin's disproportionate proportions would have undermined the driving confidence of its owners. The feeling of a car being unpredictable or loose in corners detracts from the muscle car experience, which is typically all about confidence in handling and performance. In comparison to its more balanced competitors, the Javelin's design issues likely led to a less satisfying driving experience. Muscle car buyers, often seeking performance-oriented vehicles, would have been disappointed by the handling flaws that came with the Javelin's design. In conclusion, the 1968 AMC Javelin serves as a prime example of how styling choices can drastically impact a car's performance and appeal. Its elongated body and narrow rear disrupted its overall proportions, resulting in stability issues that undermined its effectiveness as a muscle car. While it offered solid performance and a bold design, the Javelin's lack of balance and the awkwardness of its proportions left it at a disadvantage in a market dominated by well-proportioned and stable competitors. Number 4, 1965 Pontiac Tempest. The 1965 Pontiac Tempest was an ambitious attempt by General Motors to push the boundaries of the midsize car market. As a model designed to sit between the compact Chevrolet Chevelle and the full-size Pontiac Catalina, the Tempest was meant to strike a balance between size, power, and affordability. However, the design of the 1965 Tempest came with several critical flaws that ultimately hindered its success. Excessive overhangs, a lack of cohesive design cues, and a droopy rear end all contributed to the car's awkward proportions, making it appear more like an oversized compact than a true midsize car. Pontiac, a division of General Motors, was tasked with creating a midsize car that could compete with popular models like the Chevrolet Chevelle and the Ford Fairlane. The Tempest was meant to fill this gap between the compact Chevrolet Corvair and the full-size Pontiac Catalina, offering a combination of affordability, performance, and comfort. In 1965, the Tempest was redesigned to feature a longer, more mature appearance, moving away from the previous model's compact proportions. However, this shift in design direction led to an awkward balance that ultimately harmed the car's visual cohesion. Overhangs refer to the portions of a car that extend beyond the wheels at the front and rear. In an ideal car design, overhangs should be proportionate to the rest of the vehicle to maintain a sense of balance and harmony. The 1965 Pontiac Tempest suffered from excessive overhangs, especially at the front and rear, which contributed to its disjointed appearance. These overhangs made the car look longer than necessary, disrupting the balance between the cabin, the front end, and the rear end. The overly long front end created an unnecessary visual imbalance, making the car appear more like an oversized compact than a true midsize vehicle. This design flaw was especially noticeable when comparing the Tempest to its contemporaries like the Chevrolet Chevelle, which had more compact, purposeful proportions. The excessive front overhang also made the car's engine bay look larger than it needed to be, detracting from the car's overall muscular stance. Instead of conveying a sense of agility and performance, the Tempest's long front end made it look more like a stretched-out version of a smaller compact car. The rear end of the 1965 Tempest was another major flaw that detracted from the car's overall design. The droopy rear end seemed to sag, creating an unbalanced silhouette. This gave the Tempest a less aggressive, more disjointed look, especially in comparison to more muscular cars of the time. The rear overhang was too long and lacked a strong, defined rear end. The lack of sharp, clean lines at the rear made the car feel as if it was dragging a disproportionate amount of weight behind it, which reduced its visual appeal. The droopy rear also made the car appear less stable and solid, two important qualities for a midsize car that needed to appeal to a broad range of buyers. One of the most glaring issues with the 1965 Tempest design was its lack of cohesive design cues. The car seemed to have been designed with several inconsistent visual elements that didn't come together as a unified whole. The front end had a bulky grille and large headlights, which were reminiscent of full-size cars, while the rear end had a more compact design, creating an uneasy contrast. This disconnect made the Tempest look like it was pieced together from different cars rather than having a purposeful, cohesive design. Additionally, the fender lines were exaggerated in some areas, creating visual tension between the upper body and the lower body. This imbalance prevented the design from feeling fluid and harmonious, two qualities that are crucial for any car, especially one meant to compete in the competitive midsize market. Midsize cars are expected to deliver a combination of affordability, performance, and comfort. The Tempest design, with its awkward proportions and excessive overhangs, failed to deliver on this promise. Buyers expecting a nimble, well-balanced car found themselves with something that looked more clumsy and unrefined. The visual awkwardness of the car likely gave potential buyers the impression that the Tempest was underpowered or sluggish, even though the car was available with a range of powerful engines. A car's visual appeal can significantly influence a consumer's perception of its performance, and in the case of the Tempest, the awkward design likely undermined its true capabilities. In conclusion, the 1965 Pontiac Tempest serves as a cautionary tale in the importance of proportions and cohesive design in the highly competitive midsize market. The excessive front and rear overhangs, coupled with a droopy rear end, resulted in a car that lacked the visual harmony and performance potential needed to stand out in a crowded segment, while the Tempest offered solid engines and performance options. Number 3, 1964 Buick Skylark. The 1964 Buick Skylark was part of Buick's attempt to capture the growing demand for smaller, more stylish vehicles during the 1960s. Positioned between compact and full-size cars, it aimed to offer a blend of comfort, style, and performance. However, the 1964 Skylark fell short in terms of visual appeal due to its boxy proportions and massive chrome grille, which made it appear bulky and outdated. In a market increasingly focused on sleek, modern designs, embodied by competitors like the Ford Mustang, the Skylark struggled to stand out. The 1964 Buick Skylark was marketed as a compact luxury sedan, offering an alternative to the larger, more expensive full-size Buick models, but with a lower price point and a slightly smaller size. Buick sought to capture consumers who desired a more affordable luxury vehicle without sacrificing comfort or performance. It was a mid-level car that competed with models like the Chevrolet Chevelle and the Ford Fairlane. However, despite its attempt to capture the luxury compact segment, the Skylark's design placed it in an awkward position. The car's boxy proportions and outdated styling elements made it difficult to distinguish itself from other vehicles in the market. One of the most significant issues with the 1964 Buick Skylark's design was its boxy proportions. Unlike its contemporaries, such as the more curvaceous Ford Mustang, which embraced the sleek, sporty look that was gaining popularity, the Skylark retained a stiff, angular design that appeared too rigid for the time. The boxy shape made the Skylark look more like a scaled-down version of a full-size sedan, rather than a modern compact car. The sharp lines and flat panels made it feel heavy and outdated, especially in contrast to more dynamic and flowing designs from competitors. The boxiness also detracted from the Skylark's sporty appeal, making it appear more like a traditional family sedan than a car that could offer fun and performance, as was the growing trend with American muscle cars and sporty compacts. The massive chrome grille of the 1964 Skylark was another problematic feature. While chrome was a staple of automotive design during the era, the sheer size and prominence of the grille made the Skylark look bulky and out of place among the more restrained designs of its competitors. The grille dominated the front end of the car, drawing too much attention and making the vehicle look top-heavy. It lacked the elegance or refinement seen in other mid-range vehicles, where smaller, subtler grilles were favored. Additionally, the chrome grille, coupled with the boxy body, gave the car an old-fashioned appearance. The overabundance of chrome felt more appropriate on the full-size sedans of the previous decade, rather than on a compact car aimed at the youthful, style-conscious buyers of the 1960s. In 1964, the Ford Mustang was introduced, forever altering the automotive landscape and setting the standard for what a compact, sporty car should look like. With its sleek, flowing lines, long hood, and short rear deck, the Mustang embraced the modern dynamic design language that was dominating the market. The Mustang's exterior styling was aggressive, yet balanced, with a sculpted profile that made it look nimble and performance-oriented. This made it an instant hit with younger buyers who appreciated its sporty appeal and visual dynamism. In stark contrast, the 1964 Buick Skylark's boxy proportions and massive grille looked almost outdated, as if it were trying to cling to the previous decade's design sensibilities. While the Skylark was marketed as a luxury compact, it lacked the youthful vigor and modern aesthetic that the Mustang represented. The Mustang's design not only appealed to consumers visually, but also reinforced its performance credentials. The long, flowing lines suggested a powerful engine and agile handling, which was exactly what the Mustang delivered with its V8 engine options and sporty suspension. On the other hand, the Skylark's bulky, outdated design made it look more like a comfort-oriented sedan that wasn't built for performance. Despite offering a V8 engine option, the Skylark's design didn't communicate the agility and excitement of its competitors, which hurt its appeal to buyers looking for a car with spirit and style. In conclusion, the 1964 Buick Skylark serves as a reminder of how design trends can significantly affect a car's success in the market. While the Skylark had its strengths in terms of performance and comfort, its boxy proportions and massive chrome grille made it visually outdated in the face of rising, sporty designs. The success of competitors like the Ford Mustang proved that youthful, dynamic styling could resonate with a new generation of buyers, while the Skylark's design decisions left it feeling more like a product of the previous decade. Number 2, 1966 Lincoln Continental Coupe. The 1966 Lincoln Continental Coupe stands as a significant example of luxury design in the mid-1960s. Lincoln, known for its iconic sedans, sought to expand its range with the Continental Coupe as a sportier, more personal version of its flagship model. However, despite its luxurious interior and high-end features, the Coupe's design was flawed in terms of proportions and visual harmony. The Coupe lacked the sleek elegance that characterized the sedan version, with an awkwardly long hood and a stubby rear that led to unbalanced proportions. The Lincoln Continental, introduced in the mid-1940s, quickly became a symbol of American luxury. Known for its elegant styling, advanced technology, and refined comfort, the Continental was the vehicle of choice for the elite. The sedan version of the 1966 Lincoln Continental was widely regarded as one of the most stylish and well-executed cars of its time. With its clean lines, luxurious details, and iconic suicide doors, making it an unmistakable presence on the road. As the demand for sportier luxury vehicles increased in the mid-1960s, Lincoln sought to capitalize on this trend by offering the Continental Coupe. The Coupe was marketed as a more personalized and exclusive version of the Continental sedan, designed for those who wanted the luxury of the sedan, but with a more athletic flair. However, the 1966 Continental Coupe would ultimately suffer from significant design challenges that undermined its intentions. The most striking visual flaw of the 1966 Lincoln Continental Coupe was its awkwardly long hood. While the extended hood was intended to give the car a more dynamic, coupe-like stance, it instead created an unbalanced and disproportionate look. The long hood seemed out of place on a luxury coupe, where typically the emphasis would be on a more cohesive and flowing design. The extended front end made the coupe appear more top-heavy, detracting from the refined elegance the Continental sedan was known for. The overextended hood not only contributed to the car's awkward proportions, but also made it feel less agile than its sedan counterpart. The design didn't feel as graceful or well-rounded, giving the coupe a sense of incongruity when compared to other luxury cars of the time. In stark contrast to the long hood, the rear of the 1966 Continental Coupe was stubby and abrupt, creating a strong visual imbalance. The rear end was short and truncated, which further emphasized the disconnect between the long front and short back. This disproportionate rear made the car feel more bloated than streamlined, and the rear trunk lacked the sleekness or flowing lines that would typically complement the extended hood. The rear overhang of the car also contributed to the perception that the Continental Coupe was less refined than its sedan counterpart. While the sedan had a sense of visual harmony with its balanced proportions, the coupe looked as though its design elements had been hastily combined, leading to uneven styling. The 1966 Lincoln Continental Coupe was marketed as a luxury vehicle, meant to rival other upscale coupes of the time, such as the Cadillac Eldorado or the Chrysler Newport. However, its awkward design hurt its ability to compete on the aesthetic front. The Continental Coupe's lack of sleekness meant that it didn't convey the same sense of luxury and elegance that its sedan sibling did. The sedan's longer, more graceful body allowed it to stand out as a symbol of refined taste, whereas the coupe's awkward proportions made it feel more like a caricature of luxury than the embodiment of it. The proportional imbalance gave the car an unsettling look, which detracted from its potential appeal to buyers seeking a high-end vehicle with a refined aesthetic. When compared to the more streamlined and carefully proportioned designs of competitors like the Cadillac Eldorado or the Chrysler Newport, the 1966 Continental Coupe seemed less cohesive. The Eldorado, for example, featured a more balanced design with a smooth roofline and an integrated rear that didn't look cut off or out of place. Its proportions were tight and muscular, with an emphasis on both elegance and strength. In contrast, the Lincoln Continental Coupe's awkward proportions made it appear clumsy, even though it shared many of the same luxury features as the sedan. It lacked the refinement of other luxury cars, leaving the Continental Coupe to feel like a missed opportunity in terms of design. In conclusion, the 1966 Lincoln Continental Coupe serves as a cautionary tale about the importance of proportional balance in luxury car design. The decision to pair a long hood with a stubby rear created a car that felt unbalanced and awkward rather than sleek and refined. Number 1. 1964 Plymouth Barracuda. The 1964 Plymouth Barracuda was an early attempt by Chrysler to compete in the rapidly growing pony car market, a segment defined by youthful, sporty cars aimed at a younger demographic. With its unique fastback styling, the Barracuda aimed to stand out in a field dominated by models like the Ford Mustang and Chevrolet Corvette. However, while it certainly turned heads with its bold design, the Barracuda's oversized rear window created a visual imbalance that detracted from the otherwise conservative body design. The massive rear window made the car's design look more experimental than stylish, contributing to an overall awkward aesthetic that didn't quite gel with the more muscular, sleek lines expected of a pony car. The 1964 Plymouth Barracuda entered the market during a pivotal time in automotive history. The pony car era was officially born with the introduction of the Ford Mustang in 1964, which captured the attention of a generation of young, thrill-seeking buyers. As a direct competitor to the Mustang, the Barracuda was intended to be an affordable, sporty car that appealed to a youthful, performance-oriented audience. The Barracuda's aggressive fastback roofline was designed to reflect the car's sporty image and to give it a unique, stylish profile. However, the Barracuda had to balance these performance aspirations with affordability and practicality, which influenced some of its design decisions and ultimately contributed to its mixed reception. The fastback roofline of the Barracuda was one of the car's most distinctive features. However, the integration of this roofline with the rear window was problematic. The fastback styling was designed to convey speed and aerodynamic efficiency, a characteristic sought after in sporty cars. But while this roofline was meant to look sleek, the rear window of the Barracuda was disproportionately large and bulbous. This design choice created an odd visual imbalance between the dynamic front end and the awkward rear end. The most significant flaw in the 1964 Barracuda's design was its massive rear window. This rear window, while distinctive, gave the car a bubble-like appearance that seemed out of place on an otherwise conservative and angular body. The rear window's proportions were disjointed from the rest of the car, disrupting the flow of the design. While the front of the car was fairly conventional with its short hood and sharp lines, the back featured an exaggerated, almost experimental rear window, which looked as though it had been grafted onto the car as an afterthought. This massive rear window not only made the car appear disproportionate, but also detracted from the sense of sportiness that the Barracuda was supposed to embody. The car looked more experimental than sleek, as though its designers had prioritized boldness over elegance. The bubble-like appearance created by the rear window was particularly troubling because it seemed to contradict the purpose of the car. The pony car genre was all about muscular styling and athleticism, traits that were reflected in cars like the Mustang or Chevelle. Instead of embracing the sleek and aggressive lines that were associated with performance cars, the Barracuda's rear end looked awkwardly rounded. This unusual shape made the car feel more like an experimental prototype than a ready-for-production model. Furthermore, the rear window created a visual distraction, pulling attention away from the more cohesive aspects of the car's design. Rather than adding to the car's aesthetic appeal, the oversized rear window made the Barracuda appear less refined. Beyond its visual issues, the massive rear window also posed some practical drawbacks. Rear visibility in the 1964 Barracuda was compromised due to the bubble-like curvature of the glass. While the large window provided an expansive rearward view in terms of glass area, the shape of the window distorted the view, making it less practical for drivers. The curved surface of the glass led to optical distortion, which could be disorienting for drivers when reversing or navigating tight spaces. This design choice made the Barracuda less practical compared to its competitors, who featured more traditionally shaped rear windows that provided both style and functional visibility. In conclusion, the 1964 Plymouth Barracuda stands as a lesson in the importance of visual harmony and cohesive design in automotive styling. The massive rear window, while bold and distinctive, disrupted the flow of the car's design, making it appear disproportionate and awkward. Rather than contributing to the car's sporty appeal, it gave the Barracuda a bubble-like appearance that felt more experimental than stylish.